here to help you with breeze, planting seeds and teaching skills. Teachers turn schoolyards to dreams.
Hello and welcome to School Gardens with Ease podcast. I'm Leila Mireskandari, your host, and this is episode number 23. In this episode, I want to change gears a little bit and talk to the eager for school garden parents. Of course, if you're a teacher listening to this will be worth listening to because this will give you ideas on how to work with the parents community for growing the educational food garden that you want. You, the very lovely parent who dreams of a school garden for your child. I hear you. In fact, I was you over a decade ago. I started my journey not as a teacher, but as a concerned parent. I had no background in gardening. I was actually a software developer for 15 years before I went nuts for school gardens. I had just started to go up the ladder of leadership too. I was actually, in fact, a project leader of a software development team in one of the biggest banks in Canada when I quit my job and dedicated my life to growing school gardens. Long story short, I came across permaculture, found out that growing our own food was not as difficult that we were led to believe it is. I got angry that I wasn't taught this crucial life skill of growing my own food. I knew when I found out even more that the groceries at the grocery store were not fresh, all the pesticides and herbicides and microplastic that my kids were consuming, that I had very little control over the food that my family was putting in their bodies. Most importantly, I got even angrier that even my children are not learning this crucial life skill at school. But I have always been a huge fan of focusing on solutions rather than dwelling on the problems. I was slowly becoming an environmentalist back then. And very early in this journey, I decided that I will not turn into a negative, depressed one. So I started with the dream of my kids learning this at school. I was nowhere near becoming a homeschooler at that point with my demanding corporate job and my severe lack of confidence in my abilities to homeschool. That wasn't the path for me. And I also believed that this was a societal change that needed to happen, and it was bigger than my own two kids. So I thought, what if my kids and their friends could learn this at school? And since I was not a teacher back then, I did the best that I could do as a parent. I asked the school for a little bit of land and I offered an after-school gardening program which got full enrollment and went on to waitlist quickly in 2 days, which told me I wasn't the only parent who thought this was needed. By then, I had grown food in my own backyard for 2 years permaculture style, and I knew that growing food is very easy. So I thought this was gonna be a breeze. It will be so much fun. We could quickly mobilize the parents and teachers to take good care of this garden, yada, yada. I'm sure that the teachers who are listening to this are nodding their heads side to side, knowing where the rest of the story is going. But if you are a parent dreaming for a school garden, you might be thinking to do what I did or something similar to what I did back then. Don't. Please listen to this entire episode before you decide to get involved and volunteer. I'm speaking from a decade of experience doing this work full time. You've got to be very careful how you go about doing this, or unfortunately, you will be up for a huge disappointment along with exhaustion and lots and loads of resentment. At that point, I was thinking surely this was going to be supported. I mean, the parents really loved this. They enrolled their children in this, right? Well, that part was true, but I was absolutely naive and up for a huge lesson. At the end of that season, we did grow some food. The garden did look beautiful to some extent, but it was absolutely a nightmare to upkeep. It was not sustainable. It took a lot out of me and it attracted absolutely no interest from the teachers. It was an after-school program after all. Of course, I didn't give up or I wouldn't have been standing here talking to you. I could still see the potential. So I expanded that after-school program to other schools because I didn't know any other better way to do this. I did look into other people, other projects. They all had very similar shortcomings as my projects did. None of them were good enough to actually copy. Until I presented my lesson package to a public school principal. And what she told me changed my perspective as well as the entire trajectory of my work. She looked at my presentation with a lot of enthusiasm, and at the end of it, she said, Leila, what you've developed here is amazing, and you are wasting your time in after-school programs. I want this as an in-school program. I want you to come into my school and work alongside my teachers during the day, because this connects to everything. And of course, I jumped at that opportunity because, this was something new to try on. And I'm so glad I did. I quickly learned that if the work happens during the school day, a lot of the engagement and maintenance challenges that I had when I did it outside of the classroom time disappeared. And I mean disappeared. Because when the teachers were involved and connected it to math and science and language and health, etc., and the students grew the garden as part of their schooling, they were fully engaged with the garden. They all felt an ownership towards the garden, and they just took it on. Do you know how many parent volunteers we used to grow that amazing garden? 0 is the answer. Can you guess how much time me or any of the 3 teachers that I worked with that season spent on meetings, organizing, assigning tasks, overseeing volunteers, etc.? 0 hours. Now, mind you, there was a Reggio-inspired daycare at that school, and they were open during summertime, and they jumped at, offering to water with the kids in their programs during summertime. And I already came to this school with, a design in mind. And between the daycare and the school principal, who was really supportive of this, they paid for raised beds, etc., etc. So this was not perfectly replicatable everywhere else. I knew that. And I knew that in other schools that are completely closed during summer and there is no daycare like that running during summer, we did need to engage the parents' community for summer maintenance. I knew all that. I knew I didn't have all of it figured out yet, but I did know for a fact that this was to be an in-school program running during the daily instructional hours and connected to the curriculum for it to be easy, highly educational and impactful, and super engaging. So I stopped offering it as an after-school program, a lunchtime program, or a club program, because I had actually tried all of those before, and nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, was as easy and as impactful as running it during the day as an in-school program. Then I expanded it to more and more schools, built more and more gardens, and figured out an easy process for engaging the parents to maintain the garden during the summer. Mind you, I dialed down the program, the plant selections, the design of these gardens, and all of that to the point that the only maintenance that was needed during summer was watering and nothing else. But something I discovered along the way is that those enthusiastic parents, yes, I'm talking about you listening to this episode, your time and energy is best utilized after the garden is grown by the students under the leadership of their teachers during their schooling, not before. The only help that might be required of you before the start of the garden is fundraising for supplies and lesson plans, because the best and the most sustainable school gardens are those that are led by teachers, grown by students, and only supported by parents. Did you hear that? Let me say that again. This is very, very important. The best and the most sustainable school gardens are those that are led by teachers, grown by students, and only supported by parents. This is not only the easiest way to grow the school garden, but also the only way that it would be fully integrated and educational, and the only way that it is sustainable for teachers to manage. So instead of trying to be the hero and taking on a huge project like this, I'd like to encourage you to find an interested teacher, and only one is enough, in your child's school and send them my way. Because 6 years after I started my after-school program in my daughter's school back then, I ran my programs in 15 schools, and helped over 35 teachers and a little under 1,000 students to grow their gardens only in 2019. I know how it's done, and I know how it's not done. It's not done by starting a parent volunteer group, forming a club on lunchtime, or running planting events over the weekends. Those projects are recipes for chaos, exhaustion, unsuccessful and unsustainable gardens with very little to show for it. Just look around. You'll see examples of those everywhere. After COVID, I have packaged my programs into lesson plan packages that give the teachers everything they need to do what my facilitators did in 2019. And those programs come with full coaching support directly, one-on-one from me. Just send your child's teacher my way. Links are in the show notes. And all you need to do is fundraise for supplies and lesson plans and water the very low maintenance garden during summer. That's it. Easy peasy. I hope this helps. I'll talk to you next week in another episode. You've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and please share this episode with other teachers who might be interested in this topic. See you next week for a new episode.